So there's a lot that I want to talk about, and I don't necessarily know where to start. So just maybe do a 20-minute video. I'll rant a little bit. I'll show you guys a few resources that can probably help put a lot of this stuff in perspective. Because when you say it here on a YouTube video, you're going to pretty much have to deal with a lot of what people's perception is regarding a lot of these issues. Before I jump into the technical side of why I don't think Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League needs to remove its online component, let us first establish where a lot of this information would probably be coming from. Now, those of you who are really interested, who care to know, I want to recommend a course that is quite cheap. Right now, Udemy is having a sale. They're not sponsoring this video, by the way. Can't stand Udemy some days. It is about $12.99, and it's a video that is 64 hours worth of content on how to build an Unreal Engine 5 C++ multiplayer shooter. This is one very good resource. After maybe watching about 10 minutes of the introduction, you'll be able to get a sense of what this is doing. You don't need to know how to code. You don't need to know how to do video games. But the very first few, lessons from creating a multiplayer plugin, that's basically everything here. So 13 minutes, 12 minutes, 9, 6, 8, all the way down to maybe the 2-minute mark here where you do your Steam regions. So basically close to about, an hour and a half will show you the resources and show you pretty much the technical side of what it takes to create a multiplayer game. This way, when I mention the things that I'm going to mention in this game, anyone who's probably having any other contentions would have to maybe look at it from that perspective, so that way we're not arguing in the comment section, okay? All right. Now, I've seen a lot of people say the one thing that this Suicide Squad game needs is for them to remove the multiplayer. I'm not saying that it cannot be done, but here is basically what you're asking. You're asking for the developers to go ahead and rebuild the game entirely. In fact, this is just one requirement that a lot of people are actually asking for. Some people have said, well, they just need to also remove the multiplayer shoot the green things or the blue things. Like I saw the IGN guy say. He said it like, it's just maybe changing strings on a guitar. Like, that's actually easy. You can do that maybe blindfolded, but it's not necessarily always the case. A lot of times when a game developer makes a game, I think the best thing for the market to do is to just let the game come out. And this is why I don't necessarily believe that Rocksteady is delaying this game because they want to go back and rework the game. They may have delayed the game to fix technical issues that were glaring during this state of play, and also possibly to get the game away from a lot of the, current perception right now, because people seem heated. Their body's not calm yet. 2023 has not launched too many games to kind of cool a lot of the people online, because, people online, they feel like they run this thing up in here. They're like, oh yeah, the players had power, so they caused the backlash. Bruh, you don't know what you're talking about. You didn't cause anything. The developers made the game that their publisher said that they should make. And if anything, maybe the person in charge of all of this stuff is probably going to get a sit down with the big bosses saying, hey, what's going on with your game that you said was going to be releasing? Why are we delaying it? And, this person is somebody who has been profitable for Warner Brothers. Imagine their position right now. I want to mention their name, but I don't want to get into too much, of the microscope. But this person, when other people were asked, as Discovery was merging with Warner Brothers, they kept this person in their position because this person is a moneymaker, a bringer of the bread into Warner Brothers in the games division. So this game is going to come out as a live service game or some kind of game that's going to have heavy monetization, because that is one of the monetization games that seems to be in their folder to release. Businesses are, video games are a business. I see a lot of people saying these things like, oh, but what about these other studios and publishers that are making these wonderful games? Ladies and gentlemen, Marvel's Spider-Man was made to sell consoles. God of War 2018 was made to sell consoles. I know you think that Sony and its developers have all of these so-called concerns about your preferences in these, so-called single-player games. But the truth about the matter is you have to look at it from a place where you're not necessarily sleeping inside the matrix. Step out of the matrix a little bit. I'm not saying that these developers don't care about you 100%. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that their primary aim is that their company remains profitable, continues to sanction more projects so that they have more, work time. And in terms of basically they're able to maintain their jobs. So they're going to get the job done for what the publisher's mandate is. You, as the customer in the gaming scene, you come secondary. Why is this the case? This is simply the case because for gaming, for the most part, there's a wide variety of gamers across the world, people that will play games that you don't want to play. So what you need to do is basically just make it known that you don't want to play a game like this, and then basically go buy a copy of a game that you want to play. And I think that's what's going to resolve a lot of these so-called, kerfuffles that we see on the internet. But let's jump into the technical side, because I think that's actually something that really would, in my opinion, make a whole lot of sense. So before we started this video, I pointed out to this course that I've been putting on the back burner for a while, actually, for a multiplayer, shooter. This is actually a course that, that's put together by a gentleman named Stephen Ulibarri. Very brilliant guy. I've been taking a lot of his courses. This is how I kind of got started into the in-depth mechanics of Unreal Engine. When I moved from the free YouTube stuff, I decided I was going to move into some of the more paid tier stuff. And his stuff is actually quality, even beats some premium tier. When I say premium tier, there are Unreal courses that cost like hundreds of dollars. This one you can buy for basically less than what you paid for your Mortal Kombat DLC or some of the skins you've been buying, so you can wait for a Udemy sale, which happens almost every day, and you can get it for like $13. And Ulibarri is not paying me any money. In fact, he doesn't even know I'm doing this video. So, I mean, that's basically what it is. But in looking at just some of the different conversations he has here and setting up how you set up a multiplayer game, a plugin, and so on and so forth, if you notice, this is actually right after the introduction of the course. So in this particular course here, he builds his multiplayer game from the foundation where he sets up the system and the plugins in place. I've also seen other people who are building their multiplayer prototypes that are teaching it actually do it on the back end. So basically, after they've built the game, they eventually started adding multiplayer aspects to the game. The question now that we don't know is Suicide Squad one of those games where they build the multiplayer from the foundation, or they built it on the back end, or are they building it in synergy as the game is being developed accordingly? Basically, is this something where they're iterating systems that are basically dependent on the multiplayer frameworks that they actually wanted to see get out there? This is going to be very important for us to be able to know if, or at least figure out, if the game is going to get its multiplayer changed in the sense where there's a single player aspect, or the game just is basically remaining the same. The developer's going ahead to go ahead and do some really minor, tweaks overall. And I think this is what a lot of people are not considering. They think an online only requirement is something that, the developers basically just want for you to just do. You can make a game that has a single player and a multiplayer side of things, but at the end of the day, how you want the game to be iterated is going to be depending on how your full build is. So that full build, we don't necessarily know. And if it's easier for you to build your game, building the online systems as a foundation in order for the game to run reliably over servers and clients and all of that stuff, then that's just one aspect of things. So to think that in eight months they're going to rebuild the whole game to change all of these different things, basically all of the different characters, the way the AI of the characters work, the way you can join online sessions in a seamless manner, and so on and so forth. To me, I think it's quite delusional. You can hope that that's what they do, or they have systems where they're capable of doing it in 8 months, or you can just say this is what it is. The game is more than likely going into the back burner to avoid a lot of the negative reception and also finish up things like fine tuning. I go as far as saying that they probably want to make sure that the game has content stacked for at least 18 months so that when the game comes out, there's a definitive roadmap that has content being dropped as it is promised. Not like, oh, we're going to drop content and then, oh, the content's been delayed. No, I think they want to knock out the execution of this particular live service game. So when you actually want to pay a very close, attention to these things, you really got to consider things from a strategic, place in regard to how things are being done. I've seen a lot of people say things like, oh, they don't really know what they're doing and blah, 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 blah. But you seem to also confuse the fact that this is a publisher whose game arm has been capable of releasing really solid titles, regardless of how you feel about them. They're solid titles to their audiences. I know I'm playing Gotham Knights here, and you're saying, well, Gotham Knights didn't appeal to me. Maybe you didn't play Mortal Kombat 11. Mortal Kombat 11 was 5th highest selling game in 2019. The same year that Anthem and The Division 2 came out, Mortal Kombat 11 pretty much destroyed them in terms of sales and kept a very high record of sales going into 2020 as well. So that is something that was very successful for the company. And then you look look at, say, other titles as well, like Hogwarts Legacy, this is not, say, someone who's running these studios that doesn't know what they're doing, which is actually a huge risk. Ubisoft moved away from this particular, model where they had one person running things because they had a hit or miss type deal. So this is just a minor miss in terms of how things have gone for the runner, I call him the showrunner of Warner Brothers Game Studios. Now, if they decide that they wanted to go ahead and change all of these systems just to maybe remove the multiplayer and so on and so forth, then it's a very huge investment that they're taking, which then leads to the second question of, are they going to go ahead and change the game mechanics? Because that's another thing people are looking at. Some people wouldn't even care if it's online only, if they could only get specific mechanics that they, are dreaming of. Some have said, man, I hope they do some kind of a, beat down, free flow, melee combat into this thing. But the idea is that this game is actually a shooter. And that's where the challenge is whenever you're looking at shooters like this. What I think might even be a lot more challenging is if the game was made similar to Fortnite from a development perspective. So I just showed you guys one way that you can actually go ahead and create a multiplayer game, but there are many other ways you can do it. Another one is using Unreal Engine's inbuilt gameplay ability engine that has multiplayer capabilities as well. That's actually quite cool and, in my opinion, very streamlined for many developers, and that is their gameplay ability system. That gameplay ability system, you can pretty much quickly iterate and build your game fast using it. That one, the game and its multiplayer systems are very well interwoven in how things are done. So if they use that system to build a game, I am very, very, hesitant to say that it's likely that we're going to see the gameplay change overall from having an online only component overall. But there are still possibilities that you could see the place where they change the game structure, where you have the game offline, where you can just go ahead and play the game on your console, and then you can go ahead and log into a server, or maybe they might build it like Gotham Knights. But the challenge with that as well is performance. Many of you also know that Gotham Knights was running on consoles at 30 FPS. According to some people who play on console, they say it's unacceptable. I laugh because just a few years ago, you were playing 30 FPS and you were actually nominating games in 30 FPS as Game of the Year. It didn't bother you then, but somehow, because they told you on the box that you're capable of playing at 60 FPS, you eventually think that that's always going to be the case. They lied to you, or maybe I wouldn't say they lied to you. They were clever in their marketing. They told you it was possible. They just necessarily made it seem like, or maybe you perceived it, that it was always probable. So that's kind of where the difference between the marketing is, 60 FPS versus possibly 60 FPS, because in video game world, that's literally two different games. That's not even the same game. When your game can run at 30 FPS, it's one game. And then when it can run at 60 FPS, it's a whole different version of the game that you probably built from ground up to do that. But again, we'll leave all the technical side. I wanted to talk about just how I thought this was a very, very slim chance of happening. Now, the social side, which I mentioned in my last video, and I continue to mention this because when you say this, people start to get onto you. And I say, gamers, the way we're going to change the industry is if we get off our butts and actually go out there and start making video games. Some people argue and say nobody has the time to make video games. That is not true. If we look at our game libraries as gamers, there seems to be enough time having been invested in a lot of these games, or in quote games that, don't necessarily seem like, they're made with passion. They just seem like they're being made with profit. But you played them and you logged in hundreds of hours on them. You could take a few hours and you could probably learn what the heck this whole game making thing is about if you're interested. If you want the resources, they are free. I'm saying this because Epic Games gives a grant. It's called the Epic Mega Grant. You can spend 5 minutes. Don't play any game tonight. Spend 10 minutes, log in, and actually apply for a grant. And if you get selected, they will give you the resources. They'll give you a computer. And this is not even this is a very expensive computer that they actually give away. They give away many of these things, thanks to the Fortnite bros that actually spend money on V-Bucks, by the way. And they'll get you that, that device so you can actually start making your games. If you already have a computer that can get the job done, because you don't really need a big computer to do it, a computer that is actually around the cost of a console. I'm not even saying like a random, I'm talking like, say, the cost of the God of War PlayStation 5 bundle computer would get the job done. believe it or not. And a computer of that kind of magnitude, if you get it and you're wondering what kind of software do I have, no problem. The Unreal Engine is free. Unity Engine is free. CryEngine has a free version and a free, to use version that you have to pay licensing fees for. And then there are just all kinds of different really cool stuff out there, like 3D software from Blender and so on and so forth, that you don't have to pay a dime. All you have to do is have an internet connection, which many of us do have, that we use to kind of log in and chat with our friends on Discord. And we can actually get the job done if we are passionate about it. If we want change, we have to make the change. These corporations are not going to make the change. The only thing they want to do is make games that they can make cheap skins of weapons on Photoshop and sell them to us at premium prices. This is an easy way for them to make money. They don't really seem like they want to put in the hard work in making these games that are so, cool and everything. And even when they make them, they want to fund them using the live service games so that they continue to keep you in their ecosystems. Sony has done this for so many years. Why nobody even is paying attention to this is baffling to me. They'll take all their COD money. They'll go make God of War. Then they'll sell consoles. Once they sell consoles, now you're in the PlayStation ecosystem. You're paying for PlayStation Plus. Then they'll tell you, oh, God of War is the wonderfully, yeah. Then they take more money from Activision's Call of Duty and Bungie's Destiny and all the other fun live service game licenses money they're getting, and they're going to go make you Spider-Man. Then they'll make you Spider-Man 2, and then you say, oh, Sony cares. No. They don't care. They care about their own wallet. They care about their own profits. You're just the one helping make it happen. Once you realize this, you're going to take a very different approach as to how you see these games. This is why I'm like, yeah, when Suicide Squad comes out or not, what do I care? I'll play it. What does anybody care? But at the end of the day, the change that is going to happen is going to be from disruptors. And the disruptors are those who actually have the passion for video games. And yes, many of them go work for these big developers, but many of them face burnout because they want them to go ahead and crunch and make these games to suit whatever it is that they need. And I haven't even mentioned crunch. If you expect the team at Rocksteady to go ahead and in 8 months, tweak their entire game project, that's already mostly working for you so that you can have your winnie game that is not online, you're basically begging for the developers to go ahead and crunch in order to meet your own desires, which would then put them under stress, and then their creativity is going to be shot. Oh my gosh, you have no idea the Pandora's box that gamers, do we even consider the domino effect, or are we just maybe just saying these things because, we've all taken gaming to be this really fun hobby of some kind, and we're not really looking at the big picture. I look at the big picture. It's not the most popular of views. Don't get me wrong. People don't like it. When I say it, it really offends people. People unsub from me, but I'm not here for subs. I'm here for the industry to change, and it's going to change as long as we want it to change. Thanks for watching the video. Appreciate y'all that stuck around. Peace out.